thank you all very much for coming. It's good to see people here, very familiar faces. You all know each other. I'm somewhat new to Pacific and Oceania, but it's great to get this attendance. This is what we're going to talk about in the workshop today. What challenges are facing islands across the world, and how can leadership be energised and organised to try and address some of these problems, particularly we're going to look at, as I said, capitalising leadership and also financial issues to do with how to fund programs, how to fund organisations and structures that can help us to address these problems through our series of programs. So I'd just like to introduce our speakers today. Down here we have Willie Koska, who's Willie in a lovely blue shirt here. He's the director of the Micronesia Conservation Trust and key player in the Micronesia Challenge. Myself, I'm with the IUCN World Division of Effective Areas, and I look after an economic evaluation specialist group. Kate Brown is another of our speakers, and Kate's just stuck out for a minute. Kate's the coordinator of the Global Island Partnership, which is supported by the IUCN based in Washington. I'm sure a lot of you will already know about LISPA and the LISPA server for exchanging information. The next person I'd like to introduce you is Chipper Richmond. Chipper is the director of the National Tropical Botanical Garden in Hawaii. So thanks for coming. And also speaking with Chipper is Alani Wilhelm. Alani is the manager of the Papahanaumakuakea National Monument for the US. Under NOAA, which you want to know into. Nicole Leotardo is just about to come in. Nicole is the managing director of Caribbean National Resources Institute in Trinidad, and they have a very large program of green initiatives for across the Caribbean. And we couldn't be doing this without the assistance of May Britton Adams. May's the coordinator of May's the policy and partnership advisor for TNC, based in Pompeii in the Federated States of Indonesia. So what we wanted to talk about in our workshop today was, we have three key parts. First of all, I'd just like to talk about some of the background. What are these global challenges that islands are facing, and how might they go about addressing those challenges? And in looking at how we address those challenges, we have two case studies, one from the Hawaiian Green Growth Initiative, and the second study from the Caribbean on the work that Canary is doing there. The second part of the workshop, after those two presentations, we have presentations from Kate and Willie. And Kate is going to be talking about the work that LISPA is doing in catalysing leadership, and Willie is going to be talking to us about sustainable financing issues. And after we've had that part of the workshop, we're going to throw open the proceedings to discussion, and May will be coordinating, facilitating that discussion. So we're very interested in whatever questions you have. But what we're looking for is to get a clearer idea of what kind of things work and didn't work, and how some ideas could be applied in different contexts. So just let's start, and I'm sure you're all very aware of some of the key pressures that are facing islands throughout the world, tropical areas and temperate areas as well. Islands are facing issues in policies that they introduce of how to manage the welfare of their citizens, how to reduce poverty, common to many countries, but particular issues for islands around there too. Another key issue is how to manage the loss of biodiversity and how to provide support for the fundamental ecosystem services that people in islands depend on for their livelihoods and contribute to economic activity. The third major challenge is going to be around climate change. There's a lot of talk on those issues. I'll go into a bit more detail about some specific concerns for islands, climate change. And perhaps the fourth major pressure that's driving changes and challenges for islands to do with food security, energy supplies, and fresh water for livelihoods and economic activity. And as that second dot point says, these challenges, whilst the majority of countries in the developing and developed world are facing these challenges, they're particularly acute for islands across the world, especially in tropical areas, where there are smaller populations, there's less economic diversity to withstand shocks, generally a low resource base, economically dependent on a single source of income, or not many sources of income, often huge imports required at a difficult financial basis. But being small, with smallish populations, low economic diversity makes islands quite vulnerable to changing conditions. And, for example, the location of some islands exposes them to particular climatic events like flooding and storms, which can knock out an economy in one go, and then before there's a chance for recovery to do the same thing again. Some of those particular challenges associated with the issues I just discussed, well, climate change, I guess many of you will be very familiar that the issues and challenges that are coming from that are going to be associated with coastal erosion, rising sea levels, the effects of saline intrusion into water table. Should have told you. Storm events, as I just mentioned, and flood damage from increased rainfall, but maybe falling in higher catchments and then causing downstream flooding. Many of you will be familiar with the situation in Fiji, where flooding had a shocking effect on the sugarcane industry downstream. Demographic issues are going to be particularly important challenges for islands. In some situations, there's depopulation. People move away for economic prospects to other countries and leave a small base, a small labour force to try and sustain the economy they left behind. But in other countries, thinking of Kiribati, the very high population densities can be occurring. And I believe that Tarawa, Kiribati is one of the highest population densities in the world. Challenges that islands are facing with modernity could also be affecting social networks. So where there may have been customary informal controls on behaviour and resource use, with modernisation, these controls are disappearing and resource use is not being moderated so well. A particular big issue for some countries, the Pacific too, is the shift towards cash transactions and the need for cash for purchasing goods and services, which previously may have been sustained through customary means. Nutrition and health is going to be a huge issue too, with growing obesity and diabetes and heart disease from lifestyle, and particularly nutrition. Energy costs, I don't need to go into big detail on that. Many of you will also be familiar with biodiversity issues to do with habitat change, particularly invasive species, over-harvesting of fish stocks, often associated with cash incomes, and the loss of ecosystem services through various means. And of course, there's external development pressures on islands, and the growth of tourism resorts are not necessarily in keeping with the resources and environment on the islands. Various measures to encourage economic development, such as free trade zones, bringing in tourism resorts, all big concerns. So some island leaders have been looking at responding to these initiatives, to these challenges through capital-intensive works, through borrowing large amounts of money from institutions for creating ports or roads or intensive agricultural developments for export-orientated products. But some other countries have been looking at rather more small-scale, less energy-intensive, low-carbon-type approaches, local food production for sustainability, rehabilitating environments to provide those ecosystem functions that we talked about, and looking at actions for preventative healthcare, and there's a range of other issues here. So I'd like us to now think about two examples of how islands, how leadership has been generated in islands to develop some new initiatives based on these smaller scale green economy type pathways instead of a more intensive capital-based approach. And the two case studies that we'd like to feature in our workshop, the first one is the Hawaiian Green Growth Initiative, and Chipper and Alani are going to be speaking on that. And some of the key features of the programs of the initiative, as I understand it, are related to clean energy, local food production, biodiversity and natural resource management, and green job creation. And following that presentation, we have another presentation from Nicole Leoto, from Kanari and Nicole, who will talk about some of the features of the programs that that organisation has been carrying out. So I'd like to now introduce Alani and Chipper, who are going to talk to us about the Hawaiian Green Growth Initiative.
Delina, aloha mai kako. Aloha. So, aloha to everyone, and thank you again to Kate and to the Global Islands Partnership for inviting us here to this panel to share about what is really an infancy project of ours in the Hawaii Green Growth Initiative, and to share our beginning of our story with you today. As Nick said, I'm Aulani Wilhelm, and I'm speaking here as the International Team Chair for the Hawaii Green Growth Initiative. I also serve on the initiative representing both the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, but also in capacity as the previous chair of the Hawaii Conservation Alliance. I'm going to stick with my notes here, not because I'm trying to be overly formal, but I'm not known for my brevity, and this is in all of our best interest. And Chipper will present the second part of this talk. So again, special mahalo to GLSPA for your generous help. GLSPA's really, we couldn't have done this without GLSPA's support to help us launch, to believe in what it was that we were trying to do to integrate green growth. And also to our friends in Micronesia and the other island challenges around the world. It's really your inspiring work that helped us to see the vision for Hawaii joining into this network and believing that we could do some similar great things like in these other island nations. And as one of our Hawaii leaders recently said, you know, we're all on islands. We get to work on these challenges first, while the rest of the world gets to watch. So today, we're going to give you a very quick overview of our initiative, our purpose, strategy, leadership, and really the need for collaborative, integrative approach, which is very well understood on islands. Chipper will then highlight how the conservation community, our Hawaii conservation community, is really playing a leadership and very key role in this integrated green growth initiative. And our hopes is that we will work closely through building relationships with other islands and all of you here today in being able to carry this work forward. So the Hawaii Green Growth Initiative, again, as I said, was just created last year. And our main purpose was to bring Hawaii leadership together from energy, food, and environmental sectors to achieve sustainability, kind of make it real in Hawaii, and in hopes that we can be a model for integrated green growth that can be scaled up to make this idea of green growth really believable elsewhere and at other scales. And why? Well, we kind of are doing this not because we don't have enough work to do, but because we must. You know, Hawaii is one of the most isolated, actually the most isolated archipelago on Earth and population on Earth. With more than 1 million residents and over 7 million people who visit our islands each year, we're almost totally dependent on imports. Therefore, we're extremely vulnerable, really on all levels. For example, 90% of our energy comes from imported oil, and 85 to 90% of all of our food is imported. So without container ships that come to feed us, we really are not in a position to really feed ourselves at this point. And also, we understand that our long-term success in producing clean energy and local food is going to depend on and also directly affect our island ecosystems. There's no way we can increase our food production or create clean energy without having to consider what those impacts are. So as the conservation community, we wanted to take a leadership role in crafting what the nature of this partnership and the integration of sectors was going to look like, and not come to the table late. We are the original green, after all. So Hawaii we're lucky that we already have two plans. We hope to be able to characterize them as visionary plans that address all dimensions of sustainability, from environment and energy to health, education, and culture. So for example, we have a Hawaii 2050 sustainability plan, which really presents our state's hopes for the future based on 2 years of community consultation. We also have a New Day Hawaii plan, that is our governor's plan, which really takes and translates the aspirations of Hawaii 2050 into governmental policies and programs. So kind of taking it down a level to see how much we can actually implement of those aspirations. So in support of these plans, we didn't want to create a new one. We wanted to support what had already, the good work that had already been there. The Green Growth Initiative, our working groups adopted really 4 ambitious targets that we hope to achieve by 2030. 70% clean energy, 40% which would come from renewable energies, or renewable sources, excuse me, and 30% from energy conservation. And as a side, this mandate was actually passed by state law in our legislature in 2010. We hope to double local food production so that 20 to 30% of our food consumed in Hawaii is grown there. Reverse the trend of resource loss, natural resource loss from mountains to the sea, so that we can have more water, more reef fish, more healthy forests, streams and coastlines, and no new extinctions of Hawaiian species. And of course, to increase local green jobs and education and implement these targets. So who are we? We recognize that in order to make breakthrough progress on these targets, we really were going to have to go deep in our collaboration. For example, biofuels for energy could both help and also hinder local agriculture, would require reliable water sources from our watersheds, and would definitely need to address risks of invasive species. And also, we're all human beings, so natural competition and potential conflict between sectors had already started to begin, and we wanted to nip that early and see if we could take a different pathway. So these logos represent really just a few of those organizations active in green growth, those that we could collect the logos for, and they include government agencies, statewide coalitions, NGOs, businesses, foundations, and academia. So like the other island challenges that we've learned from, our strategy is really to do 3 things: to strengthen political support, to develop these multi-sector partnerships and make them strong and real, and to build global recognition of Hawaii as an example of integrated green growth, ready to learn and share with others from around the world. And really not because we want to be a model and that's our goal, but because we hope that that if we are successful, this can be a hope and inspiration and some good news in all of the mess of the bad news that's out there. So for us, we weren't sure if this was going to take traction, especially and get US support. So really, I think we consider one of our big achievements, early achievements, was a high-level briefing that we held with US Ambassador to APEC, Kurt Tong, last August. It was part of a lead-up to APEC 2011, which was hosted by Hawaii. So Ambassador Tong, after hearing from us, actually strongly encouraged Hawaii to take on this role, both as a pioneer and as advocate for green growth in the United States and hopefully in the region. So that gave us kind of a lift, thinking that we could proceed because we had the support of the national government. In our first year, we accomplished a few other things. We sponsored a first report on Hawaii's green economy, comparing economic and employment trends in agriculture, energy, and conservation. We helped to support the state's new watershed plan, doubling protection of our forest watersheds within 10 years. And we secured Hawaii's participation in the Micronesia Biosecurity Plan to address invasive species to Hawaii from the proposed US military buildup in Guam. And our coordinator really wanted us to share with you a quick example of one of our roles in the international arena as a way that Hawaii can help to be a global learning site. And that includes my work in Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, one of the world's largest marine protected areas, and along with many of my colleagues here in this room who have launched a network called Big Ocean, we partnered with the Phoenix Islands, our sister site, Phoenix Islands protected area in the Republic of Kiribati, to found this new global network. And currently, Big Ocean sites shown here in red represent 2.3 square kilometers of ocean ecosystems, about the same size as the Mediterranean Sea. And the trend of large scale is expanding, with national government proposals reflected here in yellow, and advocated sites by NGOs reflected in purple. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Chipper, another very active member of our conservation community and the Hawaii Green Growth Initiative. His leadership at the National Tropical Botanical Garden on Kauai is doing many things, but one of the things that has really been something that Chipper has helped lead Hawaii in is an integrated biocultural approach to conservation. His Breadfruit Institute is contributing to food security in the global tropics. And I'd say, most importantly, Chipper is really our champion for seeking a bid for Hawaii to host the World Conservation Congress in 2016. Chipper?